When someone just sits slouched in their chair, maybe even holds their instrument up high with that kind of facial expression, doesn't matter what instrument, string instrument, whatever, and then starts playing, yeah? If you've reached a certain level, maybe played third violin in an orchestra for 50 years. Nothing against third violin, by the way. Okay, but you go there because you want to have fun. You want to learn something. You want to make progress. Welcome to a new video. Great to have you back. Today, a really important topic. Maybe you know the feeling. You go to rehearsal. You've been looking forward to it all week. You sit down, and then somehow it starts up again. Or maybe it doesn't. You just kind of go with the flow. You feel unsure. You don't really know where your cue is, what the conductor up front is actually showing. And somehow you'd rather just listen at first. And then you realize, this is way too hard for me. I can relate, because I've experienced that too. When I started playing saxophone a long time ago, after just a few years, I began playing in the big band. And every week I went there, I was completely overwhelmed. And it went like this. I would show up, there was this huge, thick folder, and every week I was basically playing new pieces. And really, whenever we finished playing through a piece, I had just barely started to understand it, and then it was already time for the next piece, and then the next one. And yeah, I was basically constantly overwhelmed and felt totally insecure. I mean, I can't really put myself in your shoes if that's a problem you're dealing with right now. At the end of the video, I have an insight I want to share with you, something that's important to accept and recognize, because basically it makes a lot of things easier. I want to explain to you, using 5 points, how you can get more out of every orchestra, music club, big band, or saxophone quartet chamber music rehearsal. The first thing is, be like a sponge, yeah? You probably know the image of a sponge. When you dip it in water, it expands, right? And soaking up everything that's happening, that's so important. And it's important in the sense that the rehearsal you go to every week isn't just about playing your saxophone part and making it sound nice. You're actually hearing a lot of different things. You can learn so much in these rehearsals, yeah? You can learn what the conductor is actually showing up there. You can learn what the trumpets are actually playing. You can learn what the drums are actually doing. You can listen to how the woodwinds might articulate differently, who uses vibrato, who has which tone color. There are so many things to discover in a rehearsal like that, yeah? Be like a sponge and soak it all up. Yeah, that's unconscious learning. If you picture a child, just to use my example again, since I have 3 kids at home, and when they learn something new, whatever it is, it occupies them all the time. When they latch onto something, they chatter about it nonstop. They repeat it 1,000 times. As a parent, that might get on your nerves, but for the kids, it's incredibly important. Soak everything up, not just deliver what's written in your sheet music and ignore the rest, but try to experience the whole rehearsal as one big event. Number 2, your place on the chair is right on the edge at the front. Provocative, I know, but what does that mean? It means that you're ready, yes. I think nothing is worse, whether it's an amateur or a professional orchestra, than when someone just slouches in their chair, maybe even holds their instrument up with that kind of facial expression, no matter what instrument it is, string instrument or whatever, and then just plays, yeah. When you've reached a certain level, maybe played third violin in the orchestra for 50 years. Nothing against third violin, okay. But you go there because you want to have fun. You want to learn something. You want to make progress. And sitting on the edge of your seat is simply nothing other than saying, I'm ready. I'm showing the conductor, I'm showing everyone else that I'm here, that I want to play along, that I just want to do a good job, yeah. That also, in a certain way, rubs off on your fellow players, yeah? And just imagine, if the whole orchestra approaches it with that kind of motivation, yeah, what would be possible then? No matter if it's a professional or an amateur orchestra. There's an orchestra, I'll link it for you below. It's a professional orchestra, I think from Siberia, Luxaderna. I'm not exactly sure right now, led by a Russian conductor, Theodor Karensis. They play everything standing up. I think they even play some pieces from memory, and they play with an incredible intensity, yeah? So, orchestras playing while standing isn't all that unusual anymore these days. There are orchestras like that, but this playing from memory, It's almost impossible for orchestral musicians, and the intensity with which they play, yeah, like sitting on the edge of your seat, that's incredibly important. Number 3, how you can get more out of rehearsal for yourself is openly bring up things you don't understand. Whether it's that you don't know where you are in the music, or what you're actually supposed to do, or the conductor gives an instruction, play here forte piano, play it sforzato, emphasize the accents more, and you don't know what is meant, then have the courage to ask, yeah? First and foremost, that also signals interest, yeah, that you are indeed interested. I think there should be understanding for that. Of course, if you ask for the 10th time where you are, that's more of a sign that you're not interested or that you're not really present. But what's important is, if you want to know something musical or if something is unclear to you, then ask about it, ask questions. A rehearsal is there for working, after all, yeah. You're not supposed to just sit there and pretend, you're supposed to make progress. The fourth point is probably the most important thing of all. That's where it fails the most. Prepare your part. The rehearsal is pointless if your part isn't prepared. And of course, it's a bit of a two-way street. I know, in many music clubs or in many big bands, in many wind orchestras, it's often like, okay, we're sight reading now. Something gets handed out and bam, you're thrown in at the deep end. You end up overwhelmed, but things like that just can't be predicted. But everything you can prepare, you should prepare, yeah? Even if it just means taking a picture of the tricky part with your phone, yeah? We all have our phones with us, and nowadays there are apps and ways to decode rhythms without a teacher standing next to you, singing or humming it for you or whatever. I'll link a really cool app for you in the description. It costs just under €5. You can skin sheet music with it, just press play, and then the rhythm will be played for you. It works pretty well. I stumbled across it by chance last week. It's a really useful tool, yeah? When you get your part or have new sheet music, just scan it at home, listen to it, and then you'll immediately get an idea of how it's supposed to sound. Yeah, so preparing your part is absolutely essential, and that's where things often fall apart. And of course, there's another problem here. In music clubs or large orchestras, you naturally have different skill levels coming together. Some people might have been playing for 30 years, while others have only been playing for 2. That's difficult, that's problematic, and here it's also a question of balance. What do we play in the orchestra, right? It can't be too easy for some, and it can't overwhelm the others. It's also a fine line when it comes to what gets chosen, what gets played. But I think it should be balanced so that 80% of the pieces played can be mastered by everyone, right? Otherwise, if you spend half the time just sitting there unable to play alone, that's pretty frustrating too. Number 5, be brave. Dare to make mistakes. Dare to play loudly, even if everyone else is playing quietly, yeah? This rehearsal is a playground. This rehearsal is your space to experiment and try things out. And not just as a saxophonist, but also as a person, You can grow and develop there too. This is your opportunity. You might have 2 or 3 hours of rehearsal. You show up, you've prepared, and now you play. So, what's the worst that could happen? Maybe your neighbor says, hey, don't play so loud. Or, hey, that was an F sharp, you played F again. So what? But you played it, you gained the experience, and you put out into the world what you had prepared. That's what's important, especially if you haven't been playing for very long. I don't recommend that you crawl into your shell after every little mistake and think, oh God, this isn't getting any better, or I'd better just totally hold back now. I think the conductor should encourage people to play the right notes, of course, yes. That everyone plays what's written, but also that you should dare to try things and just be encouraged to experiment, yes. In the quartet, a saxophone quartet from my experience, we've tried so many things during rehearsals. Of course, sometimes that annoyed the others, or during a concert, when we were all ready, we played a lot from memory, a lot of repertoire back then, and it was sometimes really exhausting for the others when someone suddenly did something completely different, yes. But in my experience, at least, that's how the best and most beautiful moments came about, by being brave and taking a new path. So you've watched up to this point. Very nice, I'm glad. Try out these 5 strategies, yeah? Preparing your voice. I think that's the biggest game changer. One important thing is that this feeling of being overwhelmed when you're sitting there, it's part of the game, yeah? Basically, it's nothing more than stepping out of your comfort zone. Every time you leave your comfort zone, you make it just a little bit smaller and expand your sphere of influence, yeah? If you stay in your comfort zone and never even dare, then that sphere of influence won't grow, yeah? Then you won't develop any more skills. So you have to keep going out into this wild, unpredictable, open field and dare to try things out. There are things you just can't know in advance. You simply can't estimate whether you'll be able to play the 30-second notes in that key. Because you might have practiced it at home, but in the orchestra you have to do it once. And maybe it goes wrong 7 or 10 times, yeah. But maybe it also goes well 3 times. So I invite you to accept that this state of feeling a bit insecure or not knowing, is also important for growth. You can pretty much assume that with everything you do, not just in music. Whenever you feel that way, you're somehow in the process of developing yourself further, yeah? It's really exciting, and there are so many moments in my life when I feel that way, yeah? Even just in the past year, even us, making this whole video. For me, it was, or at the beginning, it was a huge challenge, yeah. Just standing here, just starting to babble. And at first I edited a lot, and even today I still edit quite a bit. But still, it's somehow become a bit more relaxed, yeah. Now I have other things where I have to push myself out there again. And that brings me right to the first one. So if you want, you can check it out. I started a second YouTube channel in English, where I share a bit of different things about music in general. Yeah, my experiences with music. And I recorded the first video there where I share my musical story, yeah? It's about my life, how I got to where I am now. And maybe you've been following me for a few months, maybe just a few weeks, or maybe even the whole past year. And there you'll get a bit of background info about me, about the guy behind the saxophone here who's trying to give you a few tips every week. Feel free to check it out. I've also recorded an online course about practicing saxophone with a metronome, which I've linked below in the description, so you can check that out too if you like. What are your experiences with orchestra rehearsals? How do you feel about them? How do you get through them? Do you have any tips or tricks? Or is it maybe super easy for you? Have you been playing in an orchestra like this for 30 years and maybe it annoys you that the newcomers always have so much trouble? Or do you have other tips for it? Let me know. Write it down in the comments below. I'm as curious as ever. Otherwise, feel free to subscribe to my channel and give me a thumbs up if you liked the video. I wish you a really great week. See you soon.